This is the number 1 2. Last night was the presidential forum with the military. It was on an aircraft carrier in New York City, or docked outside of New York City, or at the port of New York. It had Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump speaking with Matt Lauer. I was sorely disappointed in the performance of Matt Lauer. I thought that the here. Jack, stop biting that wire. It's not a toy. I was thinking that the format was going to be the two candidates up on stage, and they were just going to take questions from veterans and people that are in active service. That's what I thought would be most enlightening, most educational for voters, and for me in particular. What we really ended up getting is Matt Lauer giving Today Show interviews to two people who get interviewed all the time. I was very disappointed in his performance there, or what he did as far as being a journalist, because he really wasn't being a journalist. He was being an entertainment interviewer, which is what he is. They had a show afterward that was Rachel Maddow basically had her show at the same set afterward, and she interviewed some vets, and I thought that Rachel Maddow was better suited to have that type, or to be the moderator of that type of format, than Matt Lauer, because Matt Lauer got us a bunch of nothing. I was very surprised that he decided to jump into his interview with Hillary Clinton to talk about emails again. Now, I'm not saying this isn't an important issue. It is a very important issue. But time and time again, Hillary Clinton has been interviewed by people, including investigative bodies, about these emails. And she gives the same answer. Now, there was a veteran in the audience, because they did take some audience questions, who did ask her about the emails, and that was fine. I would have preferred if someone were to ask about that subject, it come from the audience. But to use up that time to talk about something rather than veterans issues and specific military or national security issues, I thought was more sensational television. It just wasn't good. Now let me get to Donald Trump. I don't blame Donald Trump anymore for being Donald Trump. I used to get very upset, and I still do, by the answers he gives and things he says. But if I look at the scope of his career and the scope of who he is, that's who he is. And I don't expect any more from him, but I do expect a lot more from our press. And they are not giving it. In fact, I'm not a Trump supporter, as many of you know. I blame the press for where we are with Donald Trump. The Republican Party, I would think, should be outraged by what has happened, because Donald Trump got a lot of free publicity because he was good for ratings. This is the ironic thing. He told us about what was going on as it was going on, and we, or the networks, did nothing to stop it. He said, "You'll have me on because I'm good for ratings." And that's exactly what they did. And the more sensational things he said, the more popular he became. Not because he talked about policies or plans. No, he seemed to garner support mostly just by force of personality, because he's charismatic, and people who buy into that sort of thing were attracted to him. You know, I call them freshwater fish. They get, they're something shiny is in the water, and they're attracted to it, and they go toward it. Last night, he talked about Vladimir Putin in glowing terms. He talks about how great of a leader he is. In fact, he said he had a 80-some% approval rating. Okay, well, my question if I were Matt Lauer would be, where are the other 20? Are they in jail, or are they, where are they? Because it's very plain to see that if you're not down with Putin and Russia, you're not down at all. I mean, you're probably in pretty hot water over there. And so he strikes me as someone who rules pretty much with an iron fist. And that style seems to appeal to Donald Trump.
Well, the generals under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have not been successful.
Do you know more about ISIS than they do?
I think under the leadership of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, the generals have been reduced to rubble. They have been reduced to a point where it's embarrassing for our country.
Surprise, surprise, surprise!
As somebody who has never served, but is the son of somebody who was in the 92nd Infantry Division in World War II, and has several members of the family who are lifetime career military, I am shocked that there's not more offense taken by members of the service by statements made by Donald Trump, who not only got out of service more than once in Vietnam, but doesn't seem to have done a hard day's work at all in his life. As far as, that's probably an unfair attack, okay? Because the type of work he does, although I'm sure they're long hours and that type of thing, it's a manual labor. So that was kind of a cheap shot or an unfair shot. So I'll take that away. But what I will say is that as somebody who is vying to be the next commander-in-chief, to say that our military is in terrible shape and that our leaders are bumblers and that the commander-in-chief is terrible, I understand that he's trying to take over the seat of another party. However, I'm just surprised that there's not more pushback from the military. This type of format is perfect for Donald Trump's mode of communication. And I'll let Fareed Zakaria tell you exactly what that is.
Every time it is demonstrated that Donald Trump is plainly ignorant about some basic public policy issue, some well-known fact, he comes back with a certain bravado and tries to explain it away with a tweet or a statement. I mean, he did it on Brexit. He did it on the nuclear triad. He did it really on how U.S. debt markets work. He thought that Tim Kaine was the governor of New Jersey, and now with this. And it's sort of amusing to watch how is he going to pull it off this time. What is he going to argue? Usually he adds that the press hates him. But there's a term for this kind of thing. This is the mode of a bullshit artist. And
my final criticism of Matt Lauer, and there could be more, but my final one was that he allowed Donald Trump to talk about, or he didn't question him more about taking the oil out of Iraq after we left. Now, Donald Trump said, to the victor go the spoils. There were no victors, but to the victor go the spoils. So either we were the victor or we weren't.
If you have a milkshake, and I have a milkshake, and I have a straw, there it is. That's a straw, you see. Watching. And my straw reaches across the room and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake.
I've always said, shouldn't be there, but if we're going to get out, take the oil. If we would have taken the oil, you wouldn't have ISIS, because ISIS formed with the power and the wealth of that oil.
How are we going to take the oil? How are we going to do that?
You would leave a certain group behind, and you would take various sections where they have the oil.
We should have taken their oil because this oil has been used to fund terrorism, the terrorism of what is now called ISIS or ISIL in the world. Now, as far as ISIL and ISIS's funding, I'm sure they do get some money from that oil. However, you can't go into another country and just take their oil. In other words, this is what he's saying, which I still don't know why Matt Lauer didn't ask him. He's saying, we shouldn't have gone in at all. He was against the war in Iraq. But since we were there, we might as well take their most valuable national asset. We should take control of it. What we tried to do obviously we're not successful, is go after this ill-advised, probably illegal war that we had there. We tried to set up a government there and tried to somewhat help them get back on their feet, and pulled out and left a vacuum, and ISIS has come in, and that's what's happened there now. While it wasn't done correctly, that was the right thought. We needed to figure out a better way to do it, and so if you want to talk about that, that's fine. But to go in, and supposedly, if those of us who remember, we were going to go in there and be praised as liberators. Originally, what the bill of goods we were sold were is that these guys had this uranium and they're about to make these weapons of mass destruction. We're going to go in, and they're terrorizing the people. We're going to go in there, depose Saddam Hussein. Everyone's going to cheer, and the U.S. are going to be heroes. That's not what happened, because that was a lie. Okay, so now we're set up, and we're like the bad guys in the country that we were supposed to be saving. All right. Now, what Donald Trump's saying we should do is we should have, while we're there, might as well take the only thing that can support the country. Because as far as I know, the only thing left there is sand. And unless they're just going to be blowing glass for the rest of their time there, they need that oil in order to have an economy. So while that sounds real good, it doesn't make any sense, okay? Unless you're trying to be like your boy Vladimir over there, because Vlad would have been down with that plan. And that's what Matt Lauer should have asked him about. But nobody asks him about that. Nobody does. And that brings me to my last thing. I'm going to play you 2 clips, and this is something that I just noticed, and I'll be a point that I will keep bringing home, hopefully, in these videos, is that people don't listen to other people are saying, or there's misinformation out there. Ted Cruz was asked when he was leaving the airport, and granted, I'll give him this. He was, as it wasn't a prepared statement, a reporter asked him about what he thought about the Colin Kaepernick thing. And in typical Ted Cruz fashion, he bashed him for being a rich guy who doesn't understand the blessings that he has here. Okay, now, if it had been somebody else, he'd be talking about how he made good and made a lot of money. But because, by working hard, because you have to work hard to be a quarterback in the NFL, regardless of how athletic you think black people are naturally, okay? You have to be able to have some skills and refine those skills and train those skills. And you have to be a critical thinker. That's why Heath Schuler couldn't be a quarterback for the Washington Redskins. But I digress. He went on to talk about how the president praised him for saying something bad about the flag. And Barack Obama did nothing of the sort. And I'm going to play that clip too. When he was asked about it the other day, what he did was he praised Colin Kaepernick for being a young person who wants to be engaged in the system. And he talked about how his protest, he understands how sensitive the mode he chose, how it would offend people, especially people in uniform. But anyway, here are the clips. They're kind of long. Bear with me. Here are the clips.
It's sad when you see rich, spoiled athletes that don't recognize what an incredible blessing this country is. It's very easy when you're sitting there rolling in millions of dollars to disrespect this country. I come from the perspective of my dad was imprisoned and tortured in Cuba, and America meant what it's meant for millions from across the globe. It's meant hope, it's meant freedom. And I gotta say, I was disappointed to see President Obama stand with Kaepernick and say, that's right, disrespect the flag. That's not the job of the president. The president should be standing up for America.
He's exercising his constitutional right to make a statement. I think there's a long history of sports figures doing so. As a general matter, when it comes to the flag and the national anthem and the meaning that holds for our men and women in uniform and those who fought for us, that is a tough thing for them to get past, to then hear what his deeper concerns are. But I don't doubt his sincerity based on what I've heard. If nothing else, what he's done is he's generated more conversation around some topics that need to be talked about. You've heard me talk about in the past the need for us to have an active citizenry. Sometimes that's messy and controversial, and it gets people angry and frustrated. But I'd rather have young people who are engaged in the argument and trying to think through how they can be part of our democratic process than people who are just sitting on the sidelines and not paying attention at all.
So that's it. Now, maybe that didn't change your opinion, and maybe you agree totally with Ted Cruz. That's your prerogative. But I wanted to get that out there and do what I can to kind of just let people see what actually happened and make up their mind for themselves. So that's it. This is the number 1 2. Please, if you would, subscribe or like or dislike at the bottom, and please give me your thoughts. Share this with your friends, and let me know what other topics you'd like me to talk about. And I will be seeing you soon. And for God's sake, when you cross the street, use the crosswalk. Bye-bye.
Oh, sweet Jesus.